Hello everybody and welcome back to my ARK Hardcore playthrough where we are playing through the island on Hardcore. Today we're going to be starting off by going up to the mountain with the Anki and the Moss Chops, and we're going to see which gets more berries, the Anki or the Moss Chops. And while we're up there, we are also going to be getting some obsidian and some crystal and some metal while we're up there too. This is going to be a very boring open, but we actually make quite a bit of progress when it comes down to tames later on, which is why we need the narco berries. So we're going to go ahead and go up, and we're going to go to Giga Mountain on this one. Now the reason that we're going to Giga Mountain is it's the mountain that has the most obsidian on top. That's easy to access. Now technically the volcano has the most obsidian, but it's not always easy to access, especially with an Anki. So we're just going to go to the top of Giga Mountain where we can just do a quick clear and we'll get stone, not stone, we'll get crystal, obsidian, and metal while we're up there. And now that we're at our destination, I've gone ahead and unpotted the Anki, and there's a note right here, so we're going to pick that up. And now that the Anki has double experience, we're going to go ahead and start pummeling all of the stuff that's around us. And we're just going to start right here. Now, as gone over before, the Anki is capable of reducing the weight of metal by 85%. But that only applies to metal. It does not apply to stone, it does not apply to crystal, and it does not apply to obsidian. So the crystal and obsidian we'll be placing in the RG, and the stone we're just going to be dropping because we've got the Doedicurus, and the metal is just going to stay in the Anki. This way we are optimizing our carrying capabilities, and we won't have to stop and transfer loot too much between the two. So you can see I've already collected the berries. The Moss Chops and the Anki are about equal when it comes down to collecting berries. So I went ahead and just put the Moss Chops away and kept out the Anki. By this point we have already gone through and collected most of the bushes, so I'm not gonna I'm not going to really show you that. It wasn't all that entertaining. Like I said, there was almost no difference between the two, so I just went ahead and skipped all that. And we've seen this before where I go ahead and just go around and pick up a whole bunch of nodes. I am going to leave this part in though, mostly because it's good to see how if you get like here where you get in between 4 nodes, you can actually harvest a whole bunch around you with the Anki. Its reach is pretty large. So again, we're just going to drop the stone and remove the obsidian once we get too heavy. And again, the reason that we are putting the obsidian and crystal into the Argentavis is the Argentavis reduces all mineable resources by 50%. So here you can see I've got the moss chops out. Not really sure why I did this. I can't remember what my thought was behind it. This was recorded back right after Christmas, so it's been a little over a week since I recorded this clip. Don't really remember why I got the moss chops out then. And you notice that it's starting to get framey a bit. Now, this is something that I wasn't anticipating, and unfortunately when I'm recording, I don't get to see this as I'm in the middle of recording. So unfortunately I didn't get to see all of this framiness, and this framiness does continue through a lot of the episode today. Unfortunately, the OBS that I use, it, for whatever reason, just loves to do this. And it does seem pretty random. I mean, I've got a pretty beefy computer. Again, my video card is pretty old, so I'm rocking an NVIDIA 1060. But aside from my video card, everything is Core i7 10th gen, 32 gigabytes of 3600 RAM. So it's not like I've got a terrible, terribly slow computer or anything. It is simply that OBS sometimes just sucks. And I will be checking out other recording softwares, because this does seem to be a very, very common problem. And even though I'm rocking a 1060, it's a 6 gigabyte 1060. So it's not the 3 gigabyte one, so it's not even a bad video card. It's still pretty decent. I'm still able to record all of this and play all these games. So I went ahead and finished up what I was doing there, just getting more metal, more obsidian, more crystal. And I decided that it was time to go out and find a mammoth that is worth taming. And then I found this level, I think it was a 96 mammoth if I remember correctly. So I decided to tame him. And you see here I hit my first shot. And like I said, how framey it is, I apologize about that. So this mammoth is charging in, and mammoths are pretty large, which means that it's pretty easy to get them stuck. And I kind of noticed here right before it roared that it did get stuck. So since it's stuck, I'm not going to run away. And you see that roar that it did, and it's got an effect on me. If memory serves me correctly, that reduces my ability, or that reduces my physical attack damage by 20%, I think it is. It's been a while since they made that change, so I can't remember what the actual numbers are. Now mammoths, I don't know if they have a headshot multiplier or not. It's something that I didn't really look up, if I'm being honest. They did, as I mentioned, they recently reworked them. So if you have two players running a mammoth, and one is on the back of the mammoth beating a drum. It gives a buff to your entire party, dinos and players. If I remember right, it's either a 25% haste buff or a 25% critical strike chance buff. I can't really remember. But you can see here that, you know, it's running away in a straight line. I'm able to hit it, and it goes down on top of that rock. Now, because we're at the edge of the snow biome, we've got to worry about wolves, which will kill a mammoth. We've also got to worry about Daeodons, which also will kill a mammoth, and Uterannuses, which will kill a mammoth, and Carnos, and all that stuff. So, because we've got this mammoth knocked out, we're gonna surround it with spike walls. And I gotta leave myself a little entryway and exit way, so I leave a little bit of a gap, and then I put one extra wall around that gap so animals can't just happen to meander in. And this thing had over an hour starve timer, so we're gonna be here for a while. So now I decide to go out and get this and check this out. I've got this mammoth knocked out, and I get an ascendant mammoth saddle. How crazy is that? So I haven't even tamed the mammoth yet. You can see on the right hand side of my screen that it's still knocked out. I decided to go to the greenhouse and grab the vegetables that are there so we can feed it vegetables and tame it pretty quickly. Now, to give you an idea, it's only been a few hours of playtime since I built this and removed all of the crops that were in it. But I mean, you can see that it's already grown quite a few of them in its place. So the greenhouse is definitely worth it to produce, to make. So we're heading back, and it hasn't quite been an hour, so we are going to feed this early. But you can see that, well, I cut out that part, but basically because I had flown away, the mammoth fell inside of the rock that it landed on, and I had to just break that rock. So you can see that it has been a while. It is starting to eat that pretty quickly, but it's not gaining a whole lot of taming effectiveness per bite. So it does, I mean, it takes a lot of, the herbivores take a lot of berries or crops to eat. And so it's a good thing I didn't get back here when I did, because this pack of wolves ended up being nearby. And so I went ahead and took care of them real quick. Luckily they were pretty low level, so it wasn't too big of a deal. But wolves are glass cannons. They don't take a whole lot of damage very well, but they will deal a ton of damage, especially if they're in a pack. And you saw that they were all, they all howled and they all got glowy. That is their pack buff that they get. And even as a player, you can tame wolves, and your wolves will get that same buff. They're kind of good for caving. They're small animals. They can fit into smaller spaces. But the reality is, they're just not great. So wolves, I mean, if you've got the time to level them up and breed them and what's the word called? Mutate them, then they can be worth it. They just have to, you've got to build up their health, because there is no saddle for them, so there's no armor. It's just, they run in a pack, and they're very strong in a pack. So, and now here we are. This mammoth is about to tame up, and each vegetable is 40 food points. So, and here we go. So now with the mammoth, I don't really care what its stats are. The only stat that matters on it is going to be weight. and here we're gonna just equip the Ascendant saddle that we got for it out of that drop. And now we can cryo it up and get it back home. And you can see that I contemplate leaving, even though I'm the only person who plays on this playthrough. I can't stand leaving walls behind. It's one of the rudest things that you can do in the game, and on private or on public servers, it happens all the time where you'll go somewhere to tame something, and then you can't place any kind of walls or barriers because somebody else's walls are very nearby, or somebody has built pillars nearby or what have you. So I really really big on making sure that I take all of this stuff with me, so that way it doesn't block other players from being able to tame safely. So even though I know that I'm the only person who can play on this game, it's a good habit to be in. So now that I've got my mammoth and it's back home, I decide to go out and see just how much wood it gathers. And look at that, 84, 244, we're up to 407. That's just off of 3 trees. I don't know if you guys remember a few episodes ago, I was trying to farm these trees with my axe, and I was only getting like, I think the highest I got was maybe 60 to 80 wood from one of them, and the average was about 35 wood. And then that was when I went down and went back to the beach to start harvesting the palm trees. But since we have palm trees here, I can go check real quick to see how much wood you get from the palm trees. And it is a pretty staggering amount. Now, with mammoths, they can gather wood, they can gather thatch, and they can gather berries. But you notice that all I'm gathering right now is wood. I'm not gathering wood and thatch. I'm not gathering berries at all. And I'm gathering much more wood than thatch. So what I'm doing is I'm actually using my spacebar ability, and that's what the spacebar does. If you were to use your left click ability, it does a headbutt, and then that headbutt will gather the berries, and it gathers more thatch than wood from trees. So it's definitely worth it to do. And eventually, I did cut it out. No, I just haven't done it yet. So I am going to be building a couple of buildings in the next episode. And so we are going to, I'll be showing you in that episode, how much thatch and how much wood you get when you use your left click instead of the space bar. So yeah, mammoths are definitely worth it to have. And just like the Anki and the Doedicurus, the mammoth reduces the weight of wood by a large amount, by 75%. So instead of a full stack of 100 wood weighing 50 pounds, it weighs 12.5 pounds. So it reduces that weight by 75%, which means that you can hold thousands upon thousands of wood in a fully leveled mammoth. Now, mammoths are also capable of being taken into boss fights because of their buff, but again, you have to have 2 people, so we're not going to do that. I did notice that I'm going to be needing some cooked prime meat, so I did go out, I did find an alpha, and I got its prime meat, and I cooked it. Now, I don't know if I can't remember if I went over this or not when I made the industrial grill, but it cooks 12 pieces of meat at a time, but that's 12 pieces per type you put in. So if you have fish meat and raw meat, and you put those in, it'll cook 12 fish meat and 12 raw meat at the same time. So it'll cook 24 meat at one time. If you have, raw meat, raw fish meat, and raw prime meat, and raw mutton, and raw prime fish meat, so if you have all 5 types of meat and you put it in there, it'll cook all 5 types, cook up to 12 of all 5 types at a time. So the industrial grill is definitely worth building. It seems really expensive the first time you make it, but the reality is it's not that expensive at all. Totally worth it, and definitely recommend making one, at least one. On my public server that I play, look at that. In that time, I've already got everything. You know, it's already cooked up. So on my private or on my public server, though, I have 4 of those grills because I just go through so much of the cooked meat. So I went for a fly around, and this was just a casual flight, just looking for animals to tame, and I came across this level 112 male Rex. And yeah, you bet yourself that I'm going to be taming this thing. So the first thing I've got to do is make sure that I've got metal billboards ready to go. So I needed 3 more because I've already got the 1 in my inventory. And again, with the metal billboards, it's 35 metal and 10 cementing paste. Like, it is one of the cheapest things you can make that you can actually make a trap out of. So that's why that's why it's always the first thing I go for when it comes down to the Rexes. And even when I'm ready to tame a Giga, I'll use it then too. So I'm just looking for a flat spot, a fairly flat spot that I can place this sign down, so we can start the taming process. But if you look at how just absolutely uneven this is, the fear is that if you place, 1 up high and then 1 off to the side that's lower, that the Rex could actually clip over the top of the lower one and still get out. So you do want to make sure that you find a fairly flat spot. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like this spot here, it's not going to be perfect, but it's not super uneven. Like, we basically know that a Rex isn't going to clip itself out of it. So just going to get this thing down, and then we got to get our attention onto this Rex, who is currently trying to kill a Dimorphodon. So Dimorphodon is dead, Rex has been aggroed, and you just lead it into the trap, and you eat a couple of bites because it's not going to kill you. And there you go. Rex is trapped. Now, I do cut out quite a bit of this, or quite a bit of the knockout process, because it's a high-level Rex. It takes a lot to knock out. But I do break my weapon, which is really important to kind of go over. So I look just to make sure that I've got enough trank darts, which I definitely do. I had 83 in my inventory. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm in a good spot to where if something else comes up and attacks me, I can just hop on my Argentavis and get away. This is a fairly dangerous spot, being on the edge of the swamp, but it's not too dangerous. So we go ahead and just start getting to work on this Rex. Again, you want to do all body shots because the Rex head is basically armor plated compared to the rest of its body. So it reduces the amount of torpor it takes if you're shooting it in the head. So you need to shoot it in the body. And with the way that this trap laid out, it did get the Rex stuck. So it's not moving around. You're not having to, reposition yourself to get a good shot. All you're doing is just pummeling it and making sure nothing's sneaking up on you. And here we go. And it's broken. And this is why you always carry a backup weapon. So you'll notice that I'm using a journeyman crossbow, and the stronger the weapon, so the more damage it does, the more effectiveness it has on the torpor that it deals. So even though because it's dealing more damage, it's also dealing more torpor. which is why a lot of people like to go for blueprints of, Ascendant or, Mastercraft, Journeyman type stuff. So that way you can craft your own, because you can spec your character into crafting, and it increases the damage, basically the quality of the item that you're crafting goes up because of your increased crafting ability. So if you've ever wondered why people have multiple characters, generally one of the characters is going to be a crafting character versus the rest of the characters, which might be, one of them might be a melee fighter, for knocking things out. So, and now that this guy is down, we've got about 28 minutes to kind of figure, 28 minutes on the starve timer. So it's going to be a while. And so with that time, I decided that since we're still in the Christmas time frame, I've been collecting a lot of coal and a lot of holly. Or mistletoe, not holly. I've been collecting a lot of coal and a lot of holly. So I decided to come over here where apparently all of the gotchas on the server have spawned, and decided to use up the mistletoe and the coal that I had gathered. And in that time frame, I went ahead and got a few more pieces of prime meat, and I am ready to tame this Rex. It's been 28 minutes. Its starve timer is done, so it should just eat right up. There we go. We have a fully tamed 100% effectiveness Rex. It is really weird being on a single player settings though, because the maximum level isn't 150. So I'm used to, so that level 112 would have been the equivalent of a level 140 on a main server, and that 140 on a perfect tame would have tamed out to be level 207. So, and so because I have this high level male, I decided to get out my low level female, and we're gonna start making eggs. So if you have multiple dinos to breed with, you go to behavior, you set your I think it's behavior, and you set your dino to breed, and then they just start breeding. So with that, this is the end of the episode. Next episode, we're going to be working on building a breeding pen, where we actually, incubate the eggs and hatch them and raise them. So thank you guys so much for hanging out, and you guys take care of yourselves. I hope you had a great New Year, and I hope that this year is really well for all of you. So thanks for hanging out. Bye bye.